You're listening to Inside Israel Today with Gil Hoffman on the Land of Israel Network.
Hello and welcome to Inside Israel Today here on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com, where it is a historic day. We just finished watching Donald Trump's press conference there in Singapore about the agreement that he reached with Kim Jong Un, the dictator of North Korea. He sounded hopeful. He sounded confident. He sounded vindicated. He even looked like he enjoyed talking to the press. That certainly doubted him, and here he is there to explain the agreement that he reached that could make things better for the people of North Korea. And you know what? Also Israel too. We're here in Israel and Inside Israel Today on the Land of Israel Network. And so with all due respect, North Korea is not the subject here. If you want to go to the Land of Korea Network, I'm sure they have their own podcasts. But the important question is, how does this impact Israel here on the Land of Israel Network? So, look, this can impact Israel in many ways. At that press conference, Donald Trump started speaking about Iran. And Iran is, of course, the issue that Israelis worry about the most. After all, Iran is a lot closer to us than North Korea. Netanyahu put out a video this week to the people of Iran, telling them how much Israel can help them, trying to bypass their leadership, trying to show how the North Korean agreement can lead to a brighter day for the people of Iran and therefore a brighter day for the people of Israel. What Donald Trump said was that things in Iran are changing, that they're not the same way they were right before Trump pulled out of the Iran deal. Since then, we've had companies like Peugeot Citroën car company and a Total a gas company pull out of Iran. There are businesses that are realizing that if given a choice between doing business in Iran and doing business in the United States, they're going to pick the United States. There was even a shoe company that stopped giving shoes to the athletes of the Iranian teams because they want to continue doing business with America, with all due respect. And Donald Trump also hinted, he said, they don't seem to be focused as much on the Mediterranean now, on Syria. Well, that's a very important quest that the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, is on right now. He was just last week in Germany, England, and France, persuading the people over there that they have to join this effort to get Iran out of Syria. And I was at a meeting of the Likud faction yesterday on Monday where Netanyahu said that he succeeded in bringing the Germans, the British, and the French on board to get Iran out of Syria. So this is momentum that's going in a very positive direction. The pressure that there'll be on Iran is going to intensify after Donald Trump emerges victorious from Singapore, from his meeting with Kim Jong Un. There will be pressure now from around the world on Iran that if North Korea is giving up their nuclear program, that also Iran is going to have to give up its nuclear program. And that means permanently, not just the way it was during the deal that President Obama signed with Iran that said, okay, 10 years, no, but after that it's okay. And meanwhile, we're not really going to inspect it very much. Meanwhile, we'll have inspections, but not in military sites. And those inspections aren't even going to find 1.5 billion documents that Israel happened to find. No, that's going to have to change. And one thing that we've seen is that the unconventional approach of Donald Trump has proven effective in North Korea, and perhaps it can prove effective with Iran. They don't know what to expect. They don't know how to avoid him. When he sets his mind to something, he's proven that he keeps it. And I'm sitting here about a 5-minute drive from the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem to prove that. And so this is a very, very big deal for Israel when it comes to the Iranian issue. Yesterday, I had lunch with Tzipi Livni, who is moved more and more to the left diplomatically in the Knesset cafeteria. She said this gives hope for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. And I admit I was surprised when she said that, because Abbas, the Palestinian leader, who we call Abu Mazen, he recently has been giving more and more anti-Semitic speeches. And they certainly don't sound like speeches of someone who wants to make peace with Israel. Just this past week, Saeb Erekat wrote nasty against Jason Greenblatt, the Palestinian negotiator, wrote nasty about the American negotiator. That's not the kind of thing that leads to a peace process. And Jason Greenblatt rightly wrote that the time has come for the Palestinians to have a negotiator who won't make mistakes, who is willing to make the sacrifices necessary for his own people. Saeb Erekat has been on that job now for more than 30 years and has failed nonstop in bringing about a two-state solution to his people. And so you have here really a courage by Jason Greenblatt in standing up to Saeb Erekat and saying he's part of the problem. So, but after the left-wing Meretz Party, the organization Peace Now, and the obviously left-wing newspapers Haaretz and the New York Times all said that the time of Abbas is done after those anti-Semitic speeches, Tzipi Livni, without addressing Abbas specifically, said there can be hope. There can be hope for having a peace process between Israel and the Palestinians right now. And if anything, what happened in Singapore shows it, because what we saw there was that the United States used a dual approach of both threatening North Korea and outstretching its arm. She says that's what she's been begging Israel to do, and when she's been in power, trying to implement it for so many years. And perhaps that will happen as well, whether the listeners of the Land of Israel Network, who tend to be more conservative and more against any kind of agreement with the Palestinians, want it or not, there could very well be an approach on that coming up soon by the President of the United States and his son-in-law and senior advisor, Jared Kushner. There has been talk that there for the last few weeks that maybe the long-awaited Israeli-Palestinian plan will be released after Ramadan ends. Well, Ramadan is ending tomorrow, and so maybe that will indeed be happening soon, and maybe that North Korean momentum will then be used on the Palestinian front. And maybe this will be something that Netanyahu will welcome, because obviously there's going to be a different approach that he'll like better under Trump than there was under Obama, to put it mildly. And Netanyahu is certainly not in a place to be able to say no to the President of the United States after all he's done for Israel. After moving the embassy, after breaking the Iran deal, after keeping his promises to prevent the delegitimization of Israel around the world, perhaps Netanyahu will cooperate in there being some kind of peace process. Now, unfortunately, the Palestinians, they are not interested, and perhaps fortunately, perhaps this will show the world once again that Israel wants peace, wants to help the Palestinian people more than their own leadership does. We don't know, but this could be happening very soon. It should be interesting to follow what's going to be happening. The last several weeks on Inside Israel Today, we've had guests. And I want to admit, we tried to have guests today. With all due respect to any other issue, obviously North Korea is the biggest issue. And so I wanted, just like last week when I interviewed a reporter who was on location with the Prime Minister of Israel in Europe, I wanted to have a reporter come on board from Singapore. And so I was in touch with a couple reporters there from various Israeli media outlets, and they said no for various reasons, including being quite busy, and I am not paying their salary, and I really respect that. But, ladies and gentlemen, we tried, and I think that we've gone into some of the impact that we've had over here about Israel that the correspondents I would have spoken to would have talked about, and if they happen to get If another one that I tried happens to get back soon, we will put him on the show. But meanwhile, I want to reflect on some of the shows that we've had recently, because if you've noticed, I haven't done much talking. And the reason why I haven't done much talking is because I've just had really good success in planning shows and getting really good people. Over the last several weeks, we had Ariel Kahana, the top print journalist in Israel, reporting for us from Europe, from Netanyahu's trip. Before that, we had the legal advisor of the foreign ministry, Sarah Weiss Maudi. Before that, we had Saul Singer, the author of Startup Nation. Before that, we had politicians from the left and right, Mirav Michaeli from the Labour Party, and before that, Naftali Bennett from the Bayit Yehudi Party. Before that, we had Michael Medved, the internationally acclaimed talk show host and movie reviewer, speaking about Natalie Portman. The last time I spoke on Inside Israel Today was a long time ago. It was the week that Omri Caspi was cut from the Golden State Warriors. It's been a while. And so I want to reflect on these shows. That was April 10th. Wow, it's been a while. So first of all, Netanyahu is having a lot of success in getting across Israel's point of view around the world. And the efforts right now to get Iran to pull out of Syria, if he has really drafted Europe into that, and if Donald Trump can gloat about that, about how Iran isn't in the same place that it was a few weeks ago, that is something that Netanyahu deserves tremendous credit for. And people spoke about a diplomatic tsunami. Ehud Barak used that term a few years ago, and we're seeing it is absolutely anything but. Diplomatic renaissance, I don't know about that, but it's going very well for Israel right now. And that's despite the bad news that there was over the past week with the soccer game that was supposed to be between Israel and Argentina that was canceled over here for various reasons, and that made Israelis very, very depressed. They like their soccer over here. In Israel, they apparently like Argentinian soccer better than Israeli soccer, and I understand. We're not so good at soccer here in Israel. In fact, we're not really good at any sport. Politics is our national sport here in Israel. But we are continuing to fight the fight, and I was very impressed by what Sarah Weiss Maudi had to say about how around the world not only wants to learn from Israeli security, diplomacy, technology, and how we're fighting terror. They also want to learn from Israel about how we handle international law, that we're actually become experts in that, and we can help third world countries in how they build up their legal systems. So that was really nice to hear. Startup Nation, and the fact that Saul Singer, who has gone from being the guy who wrote the editorials for the Jerusalem Post, a position that apparently is so insignificant that it's currently not even bothered to be filled, to being the best-selling author of a book that has taken him around the world, persuading the world to learn from Israel about how to be more innovative, is very, very beautiful. Naftali Bennett spoke about how he has maneuvered politically to get his agenda across in Israel, and that's only becoming more and more true every day. Netanyahu, with the current government, has let himself be pushed further and further to the right, and Naftali Bennett deserves tremendous credit for that. And that's been true on issue after issue after issue, but maybe that's going to change right now. Maybe Donald Trump will come out with a peace plan that perhaps Naftali Bennett wouldn't like very much, and Netanyahu would. That could make things very interesting in the months ahead. Now, the interview with Mirav Michaeli, I've seen her a number of times since then, including yesterday, and she still brings up how it shook her, because she didn't used to be treated like a pterodactyl for being left-wing. It's not an endangered or extinct species. There are plenty of left-wing people here in Israel. And they've been pretty silent and modest because a lot of what they pushed for has been proven wrong over time. They said that Israel would be boycotted around the world if Israel didn't give up land. And that's obviously been proven false. The land that Israel did give up on, like Gaza, has been used as launching pads for rockets and mortars, and they thought maybe building a fence around it would work, but no, the rockets aren't stopped by fences, and neither are mortars, and neither are kites that have been causing tremendous damage. And you can dig tunnels underground, and that really puts into perspective whatever Donald Trump is going to do on the Israeli-Palestinian front about the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, about Jerusalem. I interviewed for today's Jerusalem Post one of the leading candidates for mayor of Jerusalem, Moshe Leon. It's pronounced Leon, but it is spelled lion. And even if I would urge him to spell it a different way, no, he likes it that it's spelled lion. He says that there can't be Arab neighborhoods divided from Jerusalem because then there'll be rockets fired from there and terror tunnels underground. His opponent, Zev Elkin, is in favor of removing Arab neighborhoods from Jerusalem. And so it's interesting that the Likud politician, Zev Elkin, is being attacked from the right. And that leads us to Natalie Portman, who obviously wants Israel to make concessions that Israel is not making. And I think that Israel didn't, in retrospect, lose out by her not coming. We've since then gained respect from a different Natalie. There's Netta Barzilai, who is a young Israeli singer who won the Eurovision Song Contest. And her name is Netta, and Natalie Portman's original name was in Hebrew, also Netta. So Netta Barzilai, proving that you can win a contest voted on by people all across Europe and also Australia, really showed that Israel can have respect from ordinary people around the world, despite mistakes made by people like Natalie Portman who decide not to come here because of one political opinion or another. And she used to be a big advocate and ambassador for Israel. I'm sorry that people have given her false information that's made it otherwise. There remains someone in America who is still a great, great ambassador for Israel, and that's Omri Caspi. The Omri Caspi tragedy has only gotten worse because the Golden State Warriors proved that they could win with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant, and without Omri Caspi. We in Israel were cheering for the Golden State Warriors to lose. Then we were also cheering for the Cleveland Cavaliers, who they faced off against and swept, to lose because of the way that they treated their former Israeli coach, David Blatt, disrespectfully. There are Israelis who I'm sure would have liked to see a Boston versus Houston final, but that did not happen. And so at the very least, with Golden State winning the series quite easily in a series that was really 5 Golden State Warriors against 1 LeBron James, the positive that's come out is that there's no doubt that Omri Caspi is going to be given an NBA ring, an NBA championship ring by the Golden State Warriors team. He was with them the whole season. It's pretty standard that they do that for players. And I wonder if he'll wear it, because Omri was interviewed on Channel 2 of Israel last week, a very painful interview. If you know Hebrew, I really suggest you see it. I tweeted it, where he said he hasn't been watching the games. Now, I can understand, okay, you're not part of the team anymore, but you're not on the bench, but these are your guys, these are your friends, these are the people you spent a whole year with. I would think you would want to attend the games, or at least be in America to watch them, or at least be part of the fans, like on the streets when they win. It was too painful for him. He's here in Israel. He's running youth clinics, helping children, which shows you what a great guy he is. He hasn't been able to watch. And I can only hope and pray that whether it's the Golden State Warriors again, or some other really, really good team, I hope that they sign Omri Caspi, and I hope they make him a winner. I hope he breaks this terrible record that he has of the longest-serving NBA player who has not played a single playoff game. Omri Caspi deserves better. So now that we have good news, presumably, out of North Korea and Singapore, we have good news out of Germany, England, and France for Israel. We had good news from the Eurovision Song Contest out of Portugal. It was held in. Let's hope for some good news for Omri Caspi. After the break, we're going to talk about what's going on with the powerful Anglos in Israel today.
In an unprecedented revelation that shocked the world, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu exposed Iran's diabolical plan to build nuclear weapons and ultimately thrust the world into nuclear war. How did Israel successfully penetrate the most protective and secretive bunker in Tehran and extract thousands of files from under the Iranian regime? And the one question nobody seems to be asking is, why does Iran want to destroy Israel in the first place? This week on Israel Inspired.
Israel Inspired with Ari Abramowitz and Jeremy Gimpel on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Sharing the truth and beauty of Israel with the world.
And we're back here on Inside Israel today on the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com. I wrote an article for the Jerusalem Post in October called Meet the Anglos Who Whisper in the Ears of Israel's Leaders. I recommend you Google that article. I worked hard on it, and I liked it a lot. It was really intended to show that people who move to Israel from English-speaking countries become successful. There are only 2 American-born MKs currently, Michael Oren and Yehuda Glick, which is actually a record high number of American-born Knesset members. There have been many Russian-born Knesset members at the same time, many Moroccan-born Knesset members at the same time. From America, we've had a record of 2, but behind the scenes, we take roles that give us a lot of influence about Israel's future. And so in the article, I wrote about Eli Groner, the Director General of the Prime Minister's Office, who was raised in Binghamton, New York, and is a former writer and editor at the Jerusalem Post. I wrote about Netanyahu's foreign policy advisor, Dr. Jonathan Schechter, who made Aliyah from Chicago. I wrote about David Keyes, Netanyahu's English language spokesman, who made Aliyah from L.A., and also lived in New York. I wrote about Jason Perlman from England, foreign media advisor to President Rivlin. Now, I'll stop there for a second. People keep on leaving their jobs. Eli Groner announced a couple weeks ago that he's leaving his post. Jonathan Schechter Netanyahu announced last week that he was leaving his job too. I portrayed 12 powerful Anglos in the article, and Eli Groner was the sidebar, so 13. And out of the 13, 8 have either left their jobs or on their way elsewhere. Now, most of them are on their way up. Eli Groner is going to get a great job after getting this experience as being the Director General of the Prime Minister's Office. Jonathan Schechter is certainly a very smart man. I'm sure will find work quite easily behind the scenes, not in the limelight that he really apparently detests. Jason Perlman got a great job in England. And more. Avi Meir, who is at the end of the article, has been the spokesman for Natan Sharansky for the last few years. Just got a wonderful job with the American Jewish Committee. Tal Harris, who was the spokesman for Amir Peretz of the Zionist Union. He's just relocated to Africa, to Senegal, out of all places. Aaron Kalman, the foreign policy advisor to Naftali Bennett, is now going to be working for the Ruderman Foundation. So it's nice to see that people go up. People said, somebody tweeted to me, "Oh, have I cursed these people?" by writing about them? And the answer is no. These are all very bright, successful people, and they should continue to go up and up and up. And let's hope that also for the newspaper in which that article was written, the Jerusalem Post, has been going through its share of challenges. There aren't as many people working for us as there were a couple months ago. And I hope and pray for the success of the Jerusalem Post. Please buy the Jerusalem Post in print if you live in Israel. If you live abroad, please click on those ads. They help give food to our families. And I'm not just saying that for that reason. As a staff member of the Jerusalem Post, it was very proud. But also because we do such good work. We are putting out together a wonderful newspaper every single day, a website that's read all around the world by millions of people, that has such an important role for the future in telling the truth about what's going on in Israel, overtly and behind the scenes. I've been working for the Jerusalem Post for it's been this is June of 2018 that we're in. My first article was in June of 1998. It's been 20 whole years, and I hope that there will be many, many, many more years ahead. So I salute you, Jerusalem Post, and readers in Israel and around the world. This has been Gil Hoffman here on Inside Israel Today, speaking to you without anybody else on the show from here in Jerusalem. Let's see what's going to happen next week. Stay tuned.
The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. Ours is a story filled with both challenge and controversy, but ultimately, it's also a story of hope and redemption. I'm Rav Mike Foyer, and this is The Jewish Story.
Join Rav Mike Foyer for the best Jewish history podcast, The Jewish Story, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.org.